We live in a beautiful city, a city that tens of thousands of visitors from around the globe flock to each year. They come for our food and culture, for our easy ways and friendly welcome, and for the beauty of our environment. Memphis is unique in so many ways, from Sun Studios to Beale Street, from Stacks to the Pyramid, and Graceland to the majestic Mississippi River. They come, and once they're here, they always remark on the beauty of our city. This place of trees and flowers and stunning views of the river has dazzled visitors for decades. But it was not always so. At the earliest part of the 20th century, Memphis was a very different city. On a cold January day in 1929, former mayor and current political boss Edward Hull Crump stood behind the Cossett Library on Front Street, watching an Illinois Central Railroad train inch its way along the Memphis riverfront. He wondered aloud what those passengers must think of Memphis. The riverfront was a jumble of coal piles, trash, tumble-down shacks, and mud as far as the eye could see. He vowed, then and there, to do something about this unsightly mess at the very front door of his city. Things were about to change.
You had this ugly conveyor belt that came across and a very bleak sort of industrial look about it, but it was also a place where people dumped junk all the time. And there was sort of an unofficial city dump there. It really wasn't an official dump, but the city never cleaned it up, and it was technically city property. So the following year, in 1930, they passed an ordinance creating the Memphis City Beautiful Commission. The commission is given authority to plan and implement beautification efforts, not only in public spaces, but also in private spaces as well. All businesses are subject to their inspection. All homes are subject to their inspection. Their first project is to help with the Riverside Drive cleanup.
When they were charged with making that the city's front door as opposed to the city's back door, because it had been treated like the back door up till that point.
As we know, it's not just Memphis that could have been the backwater town, as Time magazine used to call us. But a lot of the cities in those days, in the 20s, they didn't know what to do with their trash. So everybody, all of them went to the waterfronts, whether it's a lake, whether it's the river, whether it's the ocean. I mean, Seattle had its problems as well. And Memphis happened to be the Mississippi River.
When Crump came up with the idea for an organization that would help to beautify the city, I think he realized and even stated that we need women to do this. And so it did give women a wonderful opportunity to become involved and to exert real influence and power.
Memphis City Beautiful is the very first in the movement. There may have been one or two other isolated communities that have done some beautification efforts, but really to formally have a commission that would address the image of the city, that was revolutionary.
We've been around such a long time, and Memphis, I believe, was green before it became cool to be green and environmentally aware. And it's all thanks to our previous mayor, E.H. Crump. He had the vision, you know, and I just am proud to be a part of that legacy that he has established.
What happened with Riverside Drive was the impetus to beautify basically the whole city. We had crepe myrtles. We planted thousands and thousands of crepe myrtles. We galvanized schools. We galvanized citizens. It was all one big movement that started in Memphis, Tennessee.
The City Beautiful Commission was in many ways a continuation of the old progressive movement. By 1930, the progressive movement had to some extent died out across the country, but reform-minded citizens remained in places like Memphis. And probably the most noted progressive in Memphis was actually the political boss E.H. Crump. I mean, he had, when he was mayor, had implemented a whole raft of civic reforms. and very much believed in sort of the progressive movement sort of basic principle, which is you can get experts together, people who understand how cities work, people who understand sanitation, who understand beautification, whatever, and apply that expertise to these problems, and you can solve the problems. You know, today we say we can't solve anything, right? But back then there was a strong belief that citizens could solve the problems of their communities.
It was, formed in 1930 as the first urban beautification commission in the country. Another number one for Memphis, like we changed the way the world shopped for groceries in 1916, the way the world traveled in 1952 with Piggly Wiggly and Holiday Inn. Well, that was a first in that time too, thinking about the look of our city. And we get through the Depression and World War II, and now you're talking about the 1950s, the greatest generations in their prime coming back home, moving out to suburbia, away from downtown, building parks, the parks movement, whether it's like Audubon Park and spreading out to the suburbs and to the other communities before they get annexed, So it was a time, and I think, when we had a lot of patriotism and civic pride in the country.
Welcome to the great city of Memphis, the nation's cleanest city, a rapidly growing metropolis of almost 500,000 people on the banks of the Mississippi River. Memphis is a first city, winner of 15 first-place awards offered by the National Cleanup, Paint-Up, Fix-Up Bureau. Memphis in 1948, 1950, and 1951 won the Ernest P. Trigg Trophy as the nation's cleanest city. In 1952, Memphis was placed in a special category as the only city in the nation to win this trophy for 3 years. Memphis is a busy city. Each April, its citizens join in one of the city's most popular projects, the Cleanup, Paint-Up, Fix-Up campaign, with reminders on every turn Memphis residents have become beauty conscious or glitter. This year's City Beautiful Commission celebrates its 25th anniversary of civic beautification and improvement under the leadership of Mrs. William B. Fowler. Visitors have come from all over the world to study the City Beautiful program. One of the first events of the 1955 campaign is a tea honoring the 121 title seekers in the Miss City Beautiful contest. Here the judges have their first look at the high school and college co-eds who are entered in the contest. Here also, each girl receives an honorary City Beautiful membership certificate. Another tea is given for the applicants for the Bronze Queen title. Here, as in the Miss City Beautiful contest, judges get their first look at the entrance. Both events are among
In the 1930s, Clarence Saunders was building his home, the Claire La Claire, which he never got to live in, the Piggly Wiggly Empire man, and he owned all this land that became Chickasaw Gardens too, and somebody said he was going to build his own golf course there because Memphis Country Club didn't want him in there. I don't know if that's true or not, but he's going to build his own course. He had this huge mansion of pink marble he was building, and he lost his fortune, so the property got foreclosed on, and the city got a hold of, and that's when it became the Museum of Science in 1930. And all these lands were actually developed around the Chickasaw Gardens Lake in Cypress Creek by a real estate company out of Louisville, and took some of the Native American names on the street names, Iroquois and things like that. Tishmingo are streets names in there, and Chickasaw is obviously a Native American name from here. I know in the 1940s there was a magnolia tree trail project by City Beautiful that put all those lovely magnolia trees around there. They're now about 75 years old, and the limbs spread out like this, and the full bed there, and the little signs that depict famous Memphians or people that City Beautiful wanted to honor, like Watkins Overton, our mayor, or Abe Goodman, a leading citizen, McFarland from the Park Commission, other names, I don't know them all, but curiously there's one, George Washington, there. And the signs, some of the signs are still there, and I'm sure there's a list somewhere. I've walked around it a couple of years ago and looked at every magnolia tree. There's about 100, I guess, and found about 30 signs that are still there. Some could have gotten knocked over, and we got pictures of them, of little metal signs saying in memory of or in appreciation of Watkins Overton, you know. So it's a neat little program there. You know, you go onto the parkways and you have the sign there at Poplar Parkway about the flowering tree trail that was put up. There was one over at North Parkway in Dunlap that got hit by a mower not several years ago. It hadn't been replaced yet, I know that, because I picked it up and took it to the park maintenance barn. You got the Madison, the big M at Madison and Parkway that I believe City Beautiful has a hand in doing that. So there's some specific projects you don't realize subtly, because there's no big sign saying, hey, City Beautiful did this. They don't put big signs up to broadcast what they do, you know. They just try to let it speak for itself. They're good works, the color of the flower of the trees, and no litter.
If we didn't have Memphis city government providing us the staff and the facilities in order to facilitate volunteers and neighborhood associations to work together, it wouldn't happen. If we were just a pickup organization, you would not have that longevity and continuity of education for grammar school children up to high school. And the growth of recycling is a fabulous example of how we didn't recycle anything 20 years ago. And now look at our city. I mean, we're picking up 80% of the recyclables in some areas. It's fabulous what we've been able to do, but that's a culture that had a core government support to facilitate it being ongoing.
The 1950s were a heyday for Memphis. We were known as the cleanest and the quietest city in America. But as with every great story, there are ups and downs. And the events of the late 1960s brought changes for Memphis and for City Beautiful.
I remember back during the 60s, after Dr. King was killed, the city was in riots and it was divided horribly. Memphis City Beautiful took a step forward to build something called mini parks, in which the African Americans and the whites would go together, take a vacant lot, build like a victory garden or plants or flowers or a playground for the children. It was an opportunity for blacks and whites to work together on something that was meaningful. And I think it showed both cultures that they could work together to make a positive force. And that went on for well over 10 years. That was a meaningful part of their history.
I do think we were the quietest city because there was a separate ordinance that, a noise abatement ordinance, that you couldn't honk your horn, you'd get a ticket for that. Loud music was less of an issue, although Victrolas and later record players could be a problem. The city probably took, in some ways, more pride in the quietest city than the cleanest, because we were a national model for noise abatement. There, in the mayor's papers that we have at the library, there are all these letters from all these municipalities. Send us your ordinance. How do you do this? How do you enforce this?
As City Beautiful grew in stature and purpose over the years, new community issues began to arise, and the organization answered with innovative ideas and new approaches to the problems facing our city. Memphis was again at the forefront of a crusade to help the courts enforce new laws and regulations which had previously been weak and poorly enforced or non-existent. This concept of an environmental court was later to spread across the United States.
The city began to put more emphasis upon the legal aspects of this, right? Passing more stringent ordinances, creating a code enforcement division where you'd have full-time inspectors going out and coercing people to clean up their property.
About 34 years ago, Edith Beatty at the time, and she is now married to Edith Heller, was the executive director of Memphis City Beautiful. And she was talking with a good friend of mine and hers, Mark Hackett, about the concept of an environmental court. I was in the city attorney's office at the time, and Mark came to me and he said, I want you to read this. And I said, well, what's it about? And he said, an environmental court. And I kind of laughed, and I said, well, that'll never happen here. He said, read it, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. So I took it home that night, read it, and I was amazed at what could be done to the kind of problems that I had seen when I was in the Memphis City courts as a public defender, the chief public defender, and a prosecutor, and then with the city attorney's office. And we saw a lot of those problems of an environmental nature. And we saw neighborhoods that would come to court, I did, and just be amazed that the judges, more often than not, would dismiss those cases. And I thought, this is not right. These people, their needs need to be addressed. And I read that, and I thought, you know, that really could work.
If anybody out there wants to do a cleanup, we can physically help them put it together. They can give us a call. We have a wonderful tool bank that has rakes and gloves and bags and everything that they could think of if they want to do a beautification project. We have the tools for that as well. So not only physical tools that they can use, but our mind that we can go out and we can help them organize it.
By and large, the people who are involved with the City Beautiful Commission then and now are volunteers who are the best workers in the world, right? And bring a passion and an intensity to a project. And so that's what happens with the City Beautiful Commission, and we're starting to do that again. I mean, the Wolf River Conservancy, the Shelby Farms Conservancy, the Overton Park Conservancy, tapping into the passion and the expertise of citizens.
I think it's important because not only was it about beauty, but it was really about livability, what we call it today, really, the whole social aspect of how an environment can affect us. I'm no scientist, but I was just reading about a Harvard research study that showed how the natural environment actually affects and has a positive effect on our brain waves. So, you know, it's bigger than just being surrounded by beauty. It's really that the environment we live in makes us the people we are. I think it makes us more gentle or kinder or more aware, more mindful.
We've won over 20 state and national awards since I've been executive director for Memphis City Beautiful. We planted over 100 trees along Elvis Presley Boulevard. People have fallen in love with the Plant the Town Red campaign, which was so great because so many people contributed toward the improvement of our city by planting red flowers during the spring. So we've done so much.
A lot of what they do and have done in the past seems to be large scale. The annual Christmas lighting citywide contests that took place every year, parades for Fire Prevention Week and things like that. You know, a big booth at the Mid-South Fair, and there was a Miss Paint Up and a Miss Fix Up and you know, beauty pageants and all of that. So many activities. So that brings the city together and can make people feel proud about where they live.
It shows that Memphis will come together for a common good, and improving our city is a great thing, and I think it's something that people will always buy into.
To me, the story not only is about the beautification efforts, which were very important, and the sense of pride and community that those brought, but it's also a very important story because it tells us about women, and women are a leader in this effort, and they do a fantastic job. And as soon as they proved that with the Riverside Drive project that they could deliver, then they're given more authority. They start creating all of these public events to bring people, bring the community at large in, and they're brilliant at it. The clean up, paint up, fix up is things that people still look back on very fondly, all of the events, the public programs, the assemblies at school, all of these things that were being done. And those are the kinds of things that bring communities together. And perhaps we're learning that lesson again, that when we do public events, free public events, it don't cost you anything to attend, and you have a diverse crowd of Memphians come together, the city's better off.
The work that we do is important because it impacts our overall quality of life. Our work has direct correlation to our health, to tourism, crime, economic development, and our property values. So our work is really important in all those aspects. So it's really important to the city.
The collection for City Beautiful that we have in the Memphis and Shelby County Room in the History Department is truly amazing. The scrapbooks run from about 1943 up to the 2000s. And they are a wonderful catalog of the tireless efforts of all of these committees that did so many big things and so many small things for the city. Newspaper clippings, photographs, before and after photographs, that was a big emphasis that City Beautiful took. The columns in the Commercial Appeal where they were consulted and responsible for making changes that citizens were requesting on an individual basis is truly amazing and is shown in this collection, and it offers so much information to people who want to see and understand the history of not just City Beautiful, but the city itself. One thing that's reflected in the collection, in the meeting minutes, the fact that the amount of debris that was collected through City Beautiful's efforts was measured in tons. The length of roads that were cleaned through the organization's efforts were measured in hundreds of miles. So these weren't small efforts. These were very large-scale efforts that really made a difference.
I think that a group like City Beautiful also introduces us to our history and to what's great about this place that we live in. A lot of it is sort of, I think, with City Beautiful and with anything about the environment, it's almost the more we learn, the more we can appreciate it, and then the better we can take care of it.
I think the city is coming together for image enhancement. We just call it a different name. We call it blight. Back then we called it litter and trash and dirty front porches, and you had to get your couches off the front porch and you had to plant flowers and crepe myrtles. But I think today we just don't have the media attention to that image. I think we take it for granted. It has happened for so many generations. School children after school children have learned the messages, they take it home. And of course, yes, we do have ugly, but we also have gorgeous.
From that little article that Edith Heller, director of Memphis City Beautiful, gave to Mark Hackett, who was the director of the Mayor's Action Center under Mayor Chandler, from that little action came all that we've done in these 33 years. See, what you never know is from a little event, when someone does something that may not seem to be important at the time, you never know what positive things will come from that. And that's what we have here in Memphis. A nationally recognized environmental court, a nationally recognized environmental protection group such as Memphis City Beautiful.
We have a sense of community pride that sometimes we lose, and I think we lost it in '68. We have regained it slowly since then, and I think that Memphis City Beautiful is on the forefront of making people feel good about Memphis and always has been.
Whether they realized it or not, they were tapping into a long Memphis history, part of Memphis culture, which the City Beautiful Commission represents, I think, all of the various conservancies who are running the parks. They're not privatized, they're not businesses. They are groups of citizens banding together to make the city a better place. And that is the best story of Memphis. And if you actually look at the history of Memphis, that is something we've been doing since the 19th century.
Today, more than any other time, we understand that our environment is so important to our quality of life. For over 85 years, City Beautiful has been at the forefront of making our city a better place for all who call it home. Over the years, its programs have changed with the times, while always keeping an eye to the idea that a clean, safe city is a better place to live and to raise our children. City Beautiful continues to inspire and is engaging a new generation of citizens to make Memphis all it can be.
Memphis City Beautiful is synonymous with actually the good housekeeping seal in our town. If people know that Memphis City Beautiful is associated with any effort, they know that something great is happening in our city.
Memphis City Beautiful has made living in Memphis better. From the parkways to our parks to the canopy of trees. These things didn't happen by accident. They happened through deliberate action. And for 85 years, Memphis City Beautiful has been at the forefront of making our city more livable.